This is the latest tally of attacks against U.S. forces by Iranian proxies in the Middle East. They are up to 65 attacks now. And you see right there in the middle of Iraq, the Al-Assad air base. There was a vehicle attack against that air base. A Spectre gunship, a C-130, was quickly dispatched to the area and took out a vehicle that was responsible for that attack, killing a number of Iranian proxy fighters at the same time. This would appear to be the hardest punch in the nose that we've hit these Iranian proxies with. Do you think this will dissuade them?
There will be no deterring them. That they are committed to continue doing this. As you've seen, every single time we've had these airstrikes, or whether it was this one here that actually hit the people that did it. So it's certainly good in that point. Finally, if you're going to go after somebody, at least go after the guys who were actually attacking the Americans, not building somewhere, which don't deter anyone. But the fact is, these are going to continue because, and if you're reading some of their comments from the region, especially those in Iraq, they're saying that they are going to continue to do this. They're trying to suck the United States into more conflict, and they want to try to tie them down. They're not going to stop, and it'll continue on until I fear one of us gets killed.
Yeah, it also seems as though Hezbollah is trying to suck Israel into a deeper conflict in the north. It stepped up its harassment of IDF forces, almost kind of goading them to come across the border and give Hezbollah a chance to enter the war fully. Here's what the Israeli Defense Force spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, said. Lebanon citizens will bear the cost of this recklessness out of Hezbollah's decision to be the defender of Hamas-ISIS. The IDF has operational plans for changing the security situation in the north. The U.S. has been keeping a lid on this war expanding. Do you expect that it can do that? Or at some point, will the IDF just say, look, enough is enough, we're going after Hezbollah?
That is a constant stress and pressure on the Israeli government, for sure. The number of attacks yesterday was 18 coming from Hezbollah into the south. It's starting to really aggravate the Israeli civilians who are still living in the area and are within range of that. They're putting pressure on the government, but we're putting pressure also on them to prevent that, to not expand this war. And it's going to be hard for Israel to continue to stay out. And I believe what they're saying, that they have plans to go in there. I mean, they've done it a full-out war in 2006, and I'm sure that they have plans to do that. But that is going to be playing into the hands of many in the region. And like some of these Arab regimes, or some of these Arab groups, that Iran-backed groups that are trying to draw us in, they're also trying to do that because their intent is to spread this out so that it becomes a region-wide war and draws more Arab support into the Palestinian side ultimately. And we've just got to be disciplined to do everything we can to prevent that, because we will not win if that happens.
Colonel, pause with us for a second. We just want to jump to the Pentagon briefing because Sabrina Singh here is talking about the attack outside Al-Assad.
So you said it's not the first time that you've responded, but I think the building's been, you've announced basically all these other strikes, and you've said it's been a weapons storage facility or training facility, and if people have been killed, it has been kind of because of the strike, not because they were being targeted specifically. So you're not saying that like these specific militants were targeted? Do you have any idea who these militants were?
We know that these are Iranian-backed militia members, but again, just to differentiate, we have taken 3 strikes in self-defense, but those were pre-planned. So just a little different here in terms of the nuance of how we're talking about this self-defense strike that we took. What was it? Early morning, I think, our time, Eastern time. We were able to identify the point of origin of these attacks because an AC-130 was up already in the area and therefore was able to respond. We do, of course, read out any retaliatory action or self-defense strikes that we take, but just want to sort of put these into separate buckets as we talk about them.
So this is the 4th time there's been a retaliatory strike.
Yes, but again, it wasn't planned. So we were able, there was an AC-130 up in the air that was able to identify the point of origin and was able to respond.
The news there that this was not a planned retaliatory strike, Colonel Davis. This just happened to be retaliation of opportunity. There was a C-130 Spectre gunship that was up in the area over Al-Assad Air Base when this attack happened, and it's the 65th attack. It was a vehicle. I don't want to say it was a vehicle-borne attack because the vehicle itself wasn't part of the attack. It wasn't a V-bid. It just would contain militants inside it. The C-130 identified the target and took it out. They knew that they were going after Iranian proxy personnel here and not just a weapons storage facility. So this would seem to be a retaliation of a different sort, rather than saying, okay, we're sick and tired of this, let's plan some targets to hit. This was, we just got hit, take them out.
Yeah, I thought it was really odd that they're trying to emphatically make some distinction. I don't really understand what the benefit of that is. I mean, I imagine that this gunship was up in the air as a result of these increased defensive positions that Secretary Austin has been talking about of late, that they're going to give more defensive capabilities, more air defense. And now you see air power is also on the ground there. And if they identified a target that was coming after America, then absolutely take them out. That's what they should be doing. I'm just not sure why she's trying to distinguish between planned or unplanned. I mean, that should be a benefit and a positive thing.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of maybe just, trying to interpret what the Pentagon is saying is the U.S. was sort of absorbing the first set of attacks and said, okay, enough, let's give them a brushback pitch, which didn't seem to brush them back at all. And then this one was, we got them on the run, we know where they are, we got the asset in the air, let's send them a message. That's just my interpretation of it. Something else that's happening in terms of, and we were talking about potential escalation to the north, we've got some escalation in the south now because Houthi rebels very brazenly, and they videotaped the whole thing, took over an Israeli-flagged cargo ship. Here's what Mark Regev, an advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, said about that. Listen here.
These people have no qualms about attacking peaceful shipping on the high seas. They've got no qualms about using hospitals as military installations. They have no qualms about shooting their rockets into civilian areas, trying to kill as many innocent civilians as they can. This is our enemy.
So the Houthis ramping it up. The U.S. has got a lot of forces in the region. Are we going to start to run interference for Israel on the high seas?
Well, I mean, this is kind of what we were talking about a while ago, that the U.S.'s interest is to keep this contained in Gaza. And that's why it's important. And I think you are seeing the White House put a little bit more emphasis and pressure on the Netanyahu government that they can't be so wantonly killing innocent civilians in the Palestine side for collateral damage or whatever word they want to use. They just have to be better at that than what they're doing, because that's what's inflaming the region. And so you see what's going on there in Iraq with this happening. You see what's going on with Hezbollah trying to draw Israel in. And now all of a sudden their allies in Yemen are also trying to step up. And lots of people want to keep taking action against Israel. And it is going to get harder and harder to keep us keep this war from escalating in a way that could draw us in. And it just is not going to be in our interest if that happens. So I hope we don't get into running interference, because that's going to then put us in the position to actually draw them in by having to destroy, targets in Yemen. And then that's going to open up a new front against us. And this just has the chance to spiral out. And we got to really be careful here.